couple years after the release of I Am Setsuna, Tokyo RPG Factory released its spiritual successor, Lost Sphear, for the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, and on PC. It was released in Japan in October 2017 and worldwide in January 2018. Like I Am Setsuna before it, this game was not planned to blow the player away with pushing the hardware limitations of the console generation. Just like Project Setsuna, it was meant to call back the golden days of JRPGs. Tokyo RPG Factory did fairly well on their first attempt to recapture this nostalgia, and were ready to put what feedback they received into their next game. In certain areas, they succeeded, but in others, well, that's a different story. Lost Sphear was made with the intent to give the player something new while still giving that old school JRPG feel. The team decided on making memories, one of the central themes. These memories would also allow the player to interact with the world in a new way. As segments of the world were constantly disappearing, you can bring them back from the void by using the memories you collected. Other parts of the world could also have new landmarks created in order to give boosts in and out of battle. Another unique aspect of this game is the title itself. The word Sphear in the title is not spelled in the conventional way. Coming from a suggestion that CEO Yosuke Masuda gave, they decided to use an archaic spelling. This decision, however, was not made in the traditional sense. Due to Masuda searching this information on his phone, and the general consensus being positive, they started referring to Masuda's phone as the magic smartphone. In an interview with Atsushi Hashimoto, he clarified that Lost Sphear is part of Project Setsuna, which is the mission to give attention to the golden age of JRPGs. This game is not a sequel or a prequel, but it is supposed to be part of the same umbrella experience. The Japanese word is hanaki, something that is frail or can disappear very easily, Hashimoto said. We put the term memory as sort of our keyword in order to tie that concept in. So a lot of the narrative discusses loss, and the memories that are involved in it, and the memories being lost, etc. While there have been speculation from fans about if the worlds of I Am Setsuna and Lost Sphear are connected, it wasn't confirmed by the developers. The developers were interested to see if any fans of the game could create a unique connection between the worlds. Lost Sphear begins with a flashback to a man watching his kingdom collapse. Nothing is told about this man, but shortly after his introduction, the narrative abruptly shifts to Kanata, Lumina, and Locke running some errands in their village of Elgarth. After a little exploring outside of Elgarth, they discover that their whole town has disappeared. What stands there now is just a white silhouette of where their town used to be. As a hopeless feeling starts to set in, Kanata discovers in a dream with the man from the destroyed kingdom that he has the ability to restore things that have become lost. Once a mysterious individual named Van joins the group, Kanata restores Elgarth by using the memories of the villagers. When doing so, Commander Galdra of the Gigante Empire sees this and asks for Kanata's assistance to help restore the other areas that have become lost. Lost Sphear is known to be the weakest of the RPGs that have come from Tokyo RPG Factory. While I Am Setsuna gave them a modest start and some good feedback on what could be improved upon, there must have been some errors made for Lost Sphear to have not made a bigger impression on the players. I had my first experience playing this game with a demo before its release, and I enjoyed it, even though that wasn't the common consensus. Most players felt confused about the choice of where the demo placed you in the story, and about what the game was about. It placed you in the middle of the story, not telling the player who you are or what you're doing. While I focused on the gameplay and the concept of the game, this should have been my first inclination that something was off. Because this game is known to be the weakest of the games developed by Tokyo RPG Factory, I've been wanting to know why that is. Before we dive in, let me remind you that this is my analysis and opinion of the game. Please be respectful and let me know what your take on this game is as well. Minor spoilers are ahead. Conceptually, I adore this game. A world where people, places, and objects are constantly disappearing is a pretty creative idea. You could see the effects happening on the world map constantly, and having the ability to bring those areas back was some of the most satisfying parts of the game. I'm all for having the map being used in unique ways, and even cited in Wind Waker about how completing the sea chart is one of the most rewarding parts in my mind. It borrows I Am Setsuna's item collecting on the overworld, but it also incorporated more diverse landscapes. A common complaint with I Am Setsuna was that the world map was kinda boring. The entire map was completely covered in snow, and I can agree that I would have liked a couple different areas where their main aesthetic wasn't just winter and snow. They took one of the weakest parts of I Am Setsuna and made it a strength in Lost Sphear. Lost Sphear's map is very dynamic, with areas constantly vanishing. Once one of these areas is encountered, the player is able to have some sense of discovery after using the memories to bring back pieces of a disappearing world. The combat is unique as it calls back to one of Square's best RPGs, Chrono Trigger, and tries to incorporate I Am Setsuna's momentum mechanics. On paper, this game looked like exactly what I wanted in a JRPG. However, the execution of Lost Sphear is a different story. One of the first things you'll notice is that this game is extremely similar to its predecessor, and I would argue that it doesn't do enough to separate it from I Am Setsuna. Many enemies feel copy and pasted into the new battle system without much change. To me, this is just idiotic. I don't mind them reusing assets, but they have to fit within the game that you're creating. The main difference in this combat system from I Am Setsuna is the emphasis of positioning on the battlefield. If the enemies don't move, and the main variety in Lost Sphear's attack selection is either in a straight line or a circle, positioning is barely important in the fight. The main difference with this combat system, besides the addition of Volko suits, is the emphasis of the arena-like positioning in the combat. Spacing your party members to have their attacks hit multiple enemies can cause large battles to end in a couple turns easy. However, the enemies and many of the bosses barely take advantage of this unique battle system. This is one of the main complaints with the game. If the enemy isn't challenging you to take advantage of the character's specific attacks, which was the main change with this combat system, why even allow the character to move while fighting? Many bosses, especially early in the game, just stay in one place and take the hits. At the same time, their attacks just hit anyone anyway. I expected this battle system to be similar to Radiant Historia Perfect Chronology, where you can use your attacks to knock enemies into disadvantageous positions and then wipe them out with a single attack, hitting all of them. Instead, Lost Sphear's combat amounts to moving around the battlefield until the enemies are in a line or attacking in a circle. This battle system was very unoptimized, and I feel this was due to a lack of both unique shaping from attacks and uncreative enemy designs. One section in particular that I feel reflects this game well is when you break Shara out of the Empire's prison. Conceptually, this section is what you would expect. You have some stealth sections where you sneak past the guards, convince Shara that you're on her side, and run from the guards after deciding to team up. This all seems like a fine section of the game, but the jailbreak session never conveyed any of the emotion that the player should feel. A huge part of the blame I would actually put on the music in the section. You're breaking out wanted criminals, so why doesn't the music reflect this? The stealth music plays when you're leaving the jail, but once you arrive outside the sewers, the music defaults back to the town music. I wouldn't care much about this, but you had a cutscene right in front of a giant garage door, a pretty telling sign that a boss fight is going to happen, before the door opens and a machine pops out. I feel like Tokyo RPG Factory wanted the player to lower their guard before surprising them with a fight, but it was pretty obvious that something like this was going to happen. I never let my guard down in the first place, so the music just felt very out of place to me. It wasn't a shocking moment in any moment in my mind, it just left me confused. I can see how some people can interpret this as a unique take of a surprise attack, but the execution just didn't feel the same. Over-explaining is a common problem throughout the game. Memories used to restore the world can be found in many different ways, including the enemies you encounter. They make this point pretty damn clear within the first couple hours of playing, so why do they say it all the time before a majority of the boss fights? Now, I'm not talking a party member encouraging you or hyping you up before the battle by saying, "Let's restore the area," or "We have to take back these memories." They instead say, "So, this could restore the area if we defeat him, right?" I just don't understand why they had to do this for almost every boss fight. It doesn't make sense to me because they already pointed this out many times before and showed it happening on the map. I felt that these interactions both weakened the overall dialogue between the characters and made me less excited to face a boss. The endgame has just absolutely terrible pacing. Here I'm talking about the quote-unquote aftergame, but I wouldn't call it an aftergame. For it to be that, the main conflict would have to be resolved. Alternate endings have existed for a while, and I'm perfectly okay with them happening. My issue is with Lost Sphear is that after the fake final boss fight, it's pretty damn clear that the problem with Chrom is still present. There was never a feeling of resolution after defeating the fake final boss. He's just another boss to take out with a cooler color palette. I really like it when games try out after games, but you have to end the main conflict first. Fading to a white screen during a character talking and just playing the credits just feels like a cheap attempt to do this to me. If you want me to be positive though, this game did have a pretty cool actual final boss fight. Is this game worth playing? Man, this is a loaded question. I'm a fan of almost every JRPG I've ever played, but I'll admit, Lost Sphear tested this. I also really like the philosophy behind the games being created by Tokyo RPG Factory. I don't believe a great game is solely defined by top-of-the-line graphics or extremely complex battle systems. A great example is Undertale, which I've already talked about a ton in the past. How a well-designed characters, an easy-to-learn, difficult-to-master combat system is what every RPG should have at its core. On paper, Lost Sphear attempts to do this, but unfortunately it doesn't succeed in my mind. If you're a casual fan of JRPGs, I don't think it's worth it for you to even try this game. I Am Setsuna will deliver an overall better experience in pretty much the same time. However, if you are a die-hard fan of the genre and you want to learn more about game design, which I personally love doing, it might be worth it. It pains me to say this, but Lost Sphear is one of the worst RPGs I've ever played, if not the worst. Sadly, this is done with a great concept, but with garbage execution. I only found a couple of the characters memorable, and the music wasn't enough to redeem it in my eyes. I've also enjoyed most of my time with playing Lost Sphear, but it comes with a lot of faults. I am so critical of this game because I see its potential. This is a game I really wanted to like, but sadly that didn't happen. It is unfortunate to see Tokyo RPG Factory's reputation dip a bit after this game, but we know that it didn't stay that way for long. As the age-old saying goes, third time's the charm. Next video in this short discussion series is Octopath Traveler. I hope you enjoyed, and I would really like to hear some other opinions about this game in the comment section below. This is Nick, signing off.